my heart. Be faithful to you, O God. I want to take you back 2 weeks to when Reverend Rob was telling us a piece of Elijah's story. The prophet was at his lowest point, fleeing for his life, witness to the chaos and evil all around him. When God asked him what he was doing in the wilderness, he responded with a cry from the heart. I have been very zealous for the God of hosts. For the Israelites, your people, have forsaken the covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away. We heard that the word of God led him on to Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, where Moses had received the 10 Commandments before him. There, Elijah was witness to the raging wind, splitting mountains, the earthquake, and the fire. God had been in all those forces before. The psalmist sings of God's mighty power. The crash of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The earth trembled and shook. Moses was aware of God in the burning bush, and God had gone before the Israelites in the desert in a column of fire. But God was not in any of those forces for Elijah. Instead, after all the noise, Elijah heard a sound of sheer silence. Or in another translation, a still, small voice. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then God spoke to him. Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And among God's commands was the charge to anoint Elisha as prophet to succeed him. What we hear about next is Elisha's call. Unsuspecting Elisha was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. Elijah passes by him and throws his mantle over him. Elisha realizes the power of the moment, but he's in the middle of very important work. He runs after Elijah and says, "Let me kiss my mother and my father, and then I will follow you." Elijah, playing it very cool, says, "Go back again, for what have I done to you?" In other words, I'm just minding my own business here. It's your call, Elisha. Yes, it's your call. Elisha gets the message, takes the oxen, slaughters them, and using the yoke as fuel, boils them and feeds the people. And only then does he follow Elijah. All my life, I've been fascinated by the idea of the call. I don't have very many explicit articles of faith, but one of the most significant is that God is speaking to each one of us all the time. Whether Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, or Buddhist, or a follower of any other spiritual practice, God is speaking. Even to those who do not believe in a God, I believe God is speaking. But we're not always listening. There are certainly moments when we clearly hear God's call. Elisha feels the mantle of Elijah on his shoulders, and even though he begs to go back to his former life, at least to say goodbye, he knows his life is forever transformed. As many of you know, I write poetry and performance pieces. For one of these performance pieces, I read about the vision quest that many First Peoples undertake as they pass from adolescence to adulthood. A young person goes out alone into the wilderness, fasting and paying attention to absolutely everything that happens. He's waiting for his particular vision. A hawk might fly across the sky. A burst of lightning might set a tree on fire. The one waiting for a vision knows that anything could be a sign that she must grasp. The still, small voice of a dove, a tiny cloud that takes on the shape of a hand. Anything could be the sign that determines identity, purpose, even a new name that the one emerging from a vision quest will be called from this time forward in the community. And when the sign is recognized, and it's time to go back to the community, the young person seeks the help of the community to interpret the sign and to learn the name that the sign has bestowed. I wonder if this vision is a pivotal moment shaping a person's entire life, or a door opening to a way of perceiving the world, or both. In this community, we are called to many tasks, many visions. Trudy Veldman is going again to Malawi this summer to see if she can teach the teachers scientific experiments so that this knowledge can spread even more widely than she has been able to spread it so far in her pilgrimages to this hungry country. Anne Crane and Sarah Perron have faithfully connected us to the Congo, where they pursued a mission in person there in the past, and now pursue in vigilant attention and prayer and communication to us about the political violence in that country, and now the terrible scourge of Ebola. Our liturgist, Christine James, was called to Honduras to witness the violence in that country, violence that we had a hand in creating, and called again to our southern border, where she stood as an ally with migrants seeking asylum. 4 of our members will soon travel once again to Dulce Nombre de Jesus in Nicaragua. Maki Day, Tim Groves, Debbie Howland, and Faith Perry will carry our love and concern to the village, and they will be our eyes, our ears, and our hearts as they meet with the families there, the elders and the young people who are learning to carry on the traditions of their spiritual leaders. One of the things we want to explore in dialogues with the community in Dulce Nombre is how these traditions are being passed down by the elders and taken up by the younger members of the community, especially the way the community shares the liturgy, God's word interpreted by all members of the community with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. This is a challenge that we face in our own covenant community. How do we ensure that what we value will continue beyond us? We want to learn, too, how the political situation in Nicaragua is affecting the people in the village. Is there division among them in response to the recent violence? We know that members of Entre Culturas, the organization that facilitates our relationship with Dulce Nombre, have different perceptions of what is going on in Nicaragua, and yet they continue to work together. They seem to offer an example of how people can work across serious divides. An example for us, and maybe for the people of Dulce Nombre. Faith, Tim, Anita Graham, Holly Humphreys, and Catherine Barry, among many others, represent us so well in the mission defined by the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, GBIO. Another call that many of us answer sporadically, but some answer every single time. Yes, we are called by many visions to many tasks, and there are all the other claims on the heart that members of this community respond to that I know nothing about. God is always speaking, and I believe this is a community where people are listening intently. But how do we discern the essential call when there are so many we could respond to? In the gospel reading for today, Jesus is uncompromising, harsh even. He knows he is headed toward Jerusalem, toward the crucifixion. He is bent on responding to his essential call. When the disciples ask him if they should command fire to come down and consume the Samaritans for not receiving Jesus, he has no mind for that now. He has no time for that. And when someone along the way declares that he wants to follow Jesus, but has to bury his father first, Jesus says, "Let the dead bury their dead." Elisha gets to go back to his plow to slaughter the oxen and feed the people at least before he follows Elijah. For Jesus, there is no time for turning back for any reason. "Let me first say farewell to those at home," another eager follower pleads. And what is Jesus' response? "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the reign of God. We are past the time when there could be any hesitation. The people of God have forsaken the covenant, thrown down God's altars, killed the prophets. We are in a dark time, as Elijah and Elisha were in a dark time. A 4-month-old baby is taken from his father at our border and his father deported. Hundreds of children are separated from their parents and scattered to the winds. No one knows how to bring these families back together again. I heard about a child who was finally returned to his mother, 5 years old. Now he hides when strangers enter. His favorite game, patting down and shackling migrants. Can you imagine? What has happened to this child? Will he ever really recover? And now we hear about children as young as 7 or 8 taking care of toddlers because no one else will in the detention camps on our border. Crying themselves and then comforting babies. Children sick and sleeping on cement floors without soap, toothbrushes, medicine, without anyone but themselves to care. At least 7 of these children have died in our government's custody since September. Our president announces his campaign with a promise to round up millions and send them back to the violent conditions and to the poverty they are trying to escape. Some of us in our society fear the stranger and want our borders locked shut so there can be no more change, no more evolution, no more movement toward the just world to which God calls us. The world where the strangers come with all their pain and all their gifts, their spirit, their music, their dancing, their desire for community, their love. And we truly welcome each other. Some of us refuse to see this vision and choose to focus instead on the fear. Refuse to focus on the real causes of the economic inequality oppressing people. Inequality that deserves our anger. Immigrants seeking asylum are the wrong target. Focusing on the fear leads to a very different notion of what the world should be than the vision of many of us here. We are in a dark time when there seems to be an impenetrable wall between those two visions of a blessed community. In the beginning of Elisha's story, he goes back to the plow, just for an instant before following his call. But by the end of Elijah's story, the reading we heard this morning, the young disciple is more than ready to take up Elijah's mantle. God is calling Elijah home. The old prophet sets out and urges the young disciple to stay behind, but Elisha will hear none of that. As the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. 3 different times Elijah urges his disciple to stay back, but Elisha refuses. He will follow until the end. They finally reach the River Jordan. Elijah takes his mantle and strikes the water, it parts, and the two cross over on dry ground. And here Elijah asks his disciple, "Tell me what I may do for you before I am taken from you." Elisha's answer, "Please let me inherit a double share of your spirit." By this time, the young disciple knows what he is asking for. Let me be possessed by my vision, by my call. It is not Elijah's to give. But he tells Elisha, "If you see me as I am being taken from you, it will be granted." And through Elisha's eyes, we see the chariot of fire, sweet chariot, bearing Elijah away. The new prophet sees the old prophet headed toward home, toward God, and his heart leaps up in a song of praise. This vision of going toward God fills him with the power to follow his call. Theologian Frederick Buechner, perhaps imagining such a moment, defines the call. The place God calls you to is where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. Where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. After Elijah disappears, Elijah tears his own clothes in two. There's no going back to the old life now. And we, in the company of prophets, watching from a distance, see the evidence that Elisha has truly picked up the mantle of Elijah and has inherited a double share of the Spirit. More light, more intensity, because that is what a dark time requires. So where are we in these stories? We do answer the calls that come to us. Not always, but sometimes. But have we heard the essential call? Are we listening for it if there is such a thing? Is it one sign given during a period of intense awareness, or a door opening to a way of perceiving the world? Or both? What if we could trust each other to help us discern the essential call for each one of us, and for us as a community? For certainly we are called as a community to bring light to the world, the way we were called to be church to Elsa and Riney in New Hampshire a few weeks ago. Can we trust each other to help us sort through the many claims on our heart to know the one path to follow? To recognize where our deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet? What if, one-on-one or in small groups, we could gather to listen to our visions and our questions about our call? What if as a faith community we took on this role for each other and took on the role of strengthening each other to follow our call? I've always thought of the call as a private matter between me and the Spirit leading me on. But in this darker time, I am feeling drawn toward naming my call aloud within my community. I want people to keep me honest, to help me discern where I must go. And I want to be among the company who listens to you, to you, to you, as you listen and discern where you must go. Elijah's mantle is flying from his shoulders. We could pick it up. We could help each other pick it up and put it on. Will we? Amen. Let it be so. Our next hymn is in the black hymnal, number 358, God of the Prophets.